The summons. The holographic message materialized in the center of Earth's United Defense Command, bathing the war room in an eerie blue light. Admiral Cassandra Veyron stood motionless, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she studied the alien faces staring back at her. There were 5 of them. Each represented one of the so-called great powers of the Galactic Council. At the center hovered Zelthrax, the Krenathi High Chancellor. His crystalline exoskeleton refracted the light into rainbow patterns, but his eyes held no warmth. To his left sat Morgana Valesh, the Kalori matriarch, her serpentine form coiled elegantly around a floating throne. On the right, the hulking figure of Warlord Krumith of the Torgalian Empire cracked his knuckles with sounds like breaking stone. The other 2 council members, a gaseous being called the Whisper and an ancient AI construct known as Architect Prime, completed the ensemble. Humans of Earth, Zelthrax began, his voice like wind chimes made of glass. The Galactic Council acknowledges your recent entry into faster-than-light travel. However, your expansion into the galactic community comes with obligations. Cassandra's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. Beside her, Ambassador Marcus Chin shifted uncomfortably in his diplomatic robes. Morgana Valesh's forked tongue flickered between her teeth. For 3,000 years, every species that has achieved interstellar capability has paid tribute to the Council. It is the price of peace, human. The cost of our protection. Protection from what? Cassandra's voice cut through the room like a blade. Warlord Krumith laughed, a sound like an avalanche. From us, of course. And from the countless other threats that lurk in the darkness between stars. Pirates, rogue AI, dimensional rifts. The galaxy is not kind to the unprepared. The Whisper's voice emanated from everywhere and nowhere. You will provide the following tribute annually: 40% of your rare earth minerals, 20% of your agricultural output, access to your genetic databases, and 50,000 humans for service in council labor programs. The room erupted. Officers shouted in outrage. Ambassador Chen's face went pale. But Cassandra raised one hand and silence fell like a hammer. 50,000 people, she repeated slowly. You want us to give you slaves. We prefer the term contract workers, Zelthrax said smoothly. They will be well treated, educated in galactic culture, and returned after a 20-year service period. And if we refuse? Cassandra asked. Architect Prime's synthetic voice resonated with cold calculation. Then humanity will be classified as a rogue species. Your worlds will be blockaded. Your ships will be destroyed on sight. Your people will be isolated until you collapse into pre-industrial chaos. We have done this before. The ruins of 17 extinct civilizations stand as testament to the Council's resolve. Morgana Valesh leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. You have 7 of your Earth days to deliver your answer. Choose wisely, humans. The galaxy is watching. The hologram flickered and died. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Cassandra turned to her staff, her face carved from stone. Get me President Kowalski. Get me the Joint Chiefs. Get me every single member of the Security Council. She paused, her eyes blazing with something that might have been fury or might have been determination. And someone find me Dr. Elena Reeves. Tell her I need the Ghost Fleet operational in 6 days. Ambassador Chin stepped forward. Admiral, surely we're not considering? Considering what, Marcus? War? Cassandra's smile was cold. No. We're not considering it. We're preparing for it. Because there's something these council bastards need to understand about humanity. What's that, Admiral? We don't pay tribute. We don't bow. And we sure as hell don't give up our people. She looked at the spot where the hologram had been. They wanted our answer in 7 days. They'll have it in 6. The response. Dr. Elena Reeves stood in the observation deck of the Orbital Defense Station Prometheus, watching as hundreds of ships maneuvered in the void beyond. Each vessel bore the scars of humanity's recent conflicts. The resource wars, the Mars Rebellion, the brief but brutal corporate fleet uprising. Ships that should have been decommissioned, scrapped, forgotten. Instead they had been hidden. Waiting. The Ghost Fleet, she whispered, her breath fogging the reinforced glass. Behind her, Admiral Veyron's reflection appeared in the window. How many are operational? 347 capital ships, 812 destroyers, over 2,000 fighter craft. Elena turned to face her. Cassandra, these ships are old. Their weapon systems are outdated. Their armor is irrelevant, Cassandra interrupted. And their weapons aren't what's going to win this fight. Elena's eyes narrowed. You're going to use it. The Vienna Protocol. The Council gave us an ultimatum, Elena. They think we're primitives, barely worthy of notice. They think we'll roll over like every other species they've bullied for 3 millennia. Cassandra's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we're cornered. The Vienna Protocol. Even the name sent chills down Elena's spine. After the near-extinction event of the Resource Wars, humanity had developed weapons so terrible, so fundamentally wrong, that they had been banned by every nation on Earth. Weapons that didn't just destroy, they erased. They corrupted. They turned reality itself into a weapon. The Cascade bombs, Elena said. The quantum shredders. The neural plague. Cassandra, these weapons are banned for a reason. They're crimes against existence itself. And slavery isn't? Cassandra shot back. They want 50,000 of our people, Elena. 50,000 souls to be worked to death in their mines, their factories, their pleasure houses. And that's just the first year. Once they know we'll submit, the demands will never stop. Elena was quiet for a long moment. How long until the council expects our answer? 23 hours. Then we'd better get to work. Meanwhile, aboard the council's flagship Eternal Dominion, the 5 council members gathered in their chamber. The mood was celebratory. The humans will comply, Morgana Valish purred, coiling around a data console. They always do. Fear is a universal constant. Zelthrax sipped a luminescent liquid from a crystal glass. Their ships are primitive. Their technology is derivative. Even if they refuse, crushing them will take mere weeks. Warlord Krumeth grunted. I almost hope they resist. My warriors grow restless. Human bones would make fine trophies. The whisper drifted through the chamber. Intelligence reports indicate significant military activity in Earth's orbit. They are moving ships. Evacuation vessels, no doubt, Architect Prime calculated. Standard fear response. They will attempt to appear strong while preparing to flee. Let them posture, Zelthrax said, dismissing the concern with a wave. In 23 hours they will kneel like all the others. The pattern holds. It always holds. But the Whisper, who had observed countless species over millennia, felt something it had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. There was something in the human transmissions, something in the pattern of their ship movements, that did not match previous species. It said nothing. After all, what could primitives do against the might of the Council? On Earth, President Kowalski addressed the world. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with quiet fury. My fellow humans, citizens of Earth and her colonies, today we received a demand from the Galactic Council. They want our resources. They want our freedom. They want our children. She paused, letting the words sink in. I want to be clear about what comes next. In 18 hours we will deliver our response to the Council. It will not be the response they expect. She leaned forward, her voice dropping but somehow becoming more powerful. For 3,000 years, the Council has extorted every species they encountered. They have built their empire on fear, on slavery, on the broken backs of countless civilizations too afraid to say no. Today humanity says no. Tomorrow we remind the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth's children. The broadcast ended, replaced by a simple image. Earth, beautiful and blue, surrounded by a ring of warships. And in orbit, Dr. Elena Reeves activated the first of the Vienna Protocol weapons. The deadline. The Galactic Council's war room hummed with activity as the deadline approached. Tactical displays showed the entire Sol system, with Earth glowing at the center like a blue jewel. Surrounding it, hundreds of human ships formed defensive patterns that, to the Council's military analysts, seemed almost quaint. 10 minutes until the deadline, Architect Prime announced, its voice emotionless as always. Warlord Krumeth studied the formations with growing amusement. Look at them. They've arranged their ships in a sphere as if that will protect them from our fleet. They don't even understand basic three-dimensional combat. Morgana Valash's eyes narrowed. And yet they haven't attempted to flee. Every other species attempted evacuation. Humanity is stationary. Paralyzed by fear, Zelthrax said confidently, though something in his voice suggested even he didn't quite believe it. The whisper drifted closer to the main display, its gaseous form swirling with agitation. I have been analyzing their transmissions. There is something wrong. The humans are not broadcasting panic. They are broadcasting defiance. And something else. Something that translates poorly. The word appears to be remember. Remember what? Krumeth scoffed. That is what concerns me, the whisper replied. Aboard the United Earth ship Defiance, Admiral Cassandra Veyron sat in her command chair, surrounded by the best officers humanity had to offer. Captain Derek Stone commanded the tactical station. Commander Yuki Tanaka monitored communications. Dr. Elena Reeves stood at a specialized console, her hands hovering over controls that no one had ever intended to use. 5 minutes, Stone reported, his voice steady despite the tension. Cassandra activated her ship-wide comm. All hands, this is the Admiral. In 5 minutes, we're going to show the Galactic Council something they've never seen before. We're going to show them that humanity doesn't negotiate with slavers. We don't bow to tyrants. And we sure as hell don't go quietly into the dark. She paused, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Our ancestors fought for freedom against impossible odds. They stood at Thermopylae. They stormed the beaches of Normandy. They refused to bow in Tiananmen Square, in Soweto, in Birmingham. Today we honor their memory. Today we add our names to that list. Today humanity stands. The crew erupted in cheers that echoed through every ship in the fleet. 2 minutes, Stone reported. Cassandra opened a channel to the Ghost Fleet. Dr. Reeves, status on the Vienna Protocol weapons? Elena's voice was tight with tension. All systems armed. Cascade bombs are synchronized. Quantum shredders are locked on target coordinates. Neural plague is contained and ready for deployment. Admiral, I need to say this one more time. Once we use these weapons, there's no going back. We'll be crossing a line that... We didn't draw this line, Elena. The Council did when they demanded our people. Cassandra's voice was iron. Fire on my command. 1 minute, Stone announced. The Council's transmission request lit up every screen. Cassandra nodded, and Zelthrax's crystalline face appeared once more. Humans of Earth, the deadline has arrived. Transmit your acceptance of our terms, or face the consequences of your defiance. Cassandra stood, straightening her uniform. Behind her, the Ghost Fleet powered up as one, their engines igniting like newborn stars. High Chancellor Zelthrax, members of the Galactic Council, I am Admiral Cassandra Veyron of the United Earth Defense Force. I have your answer. She stepped closer to the camera, her eyes burning with cold fire. No. The single word hung in the void like a declaration of war. Zelthrax's expression shifted from confidence to disbelief. You refuse? Do you not understand what we will do to your world? We will. You'll do nothing, Cassandra interrupted. Because you're going to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. You see those ships surrounding Earth? Those aren't defensive positions. They're launch platforms. And in approximately 30 seconds, they're going to fire weapons that your species has never encountered. Weapons that will make you regret you ever heard the name humanity. Morgana Valish laughed, a hissing sound. You threaten us with your primitive missiles? Our shields will. Not missiles, Elena Reeves said, stepping into view. Something worse. Much worse. You see, when humanity nearly destroyed itself a century ago, we learned to weaponize things that shouldn't be weapons. We learned to break reality itself. And we swore never to use these weapons again. But you left us no choice. Ridiculous, Warlord Krumith growled. Architect Prime, deploy the fleet. We'll crush these insects in 10 seconds, Stone announced calmly. Cassandra smiled, and it was not a kind expression. You wanted tribute, Chancellor? Here it is. Consider this humanity's gift to the Galactic Council. 5 seconds. Admiral, you're bluffing. No species would dare. 3, 2, 1. Cassandra's voice rang out like a bell. Dr. Reeves, you are authorized to fire. Show them what happens when you threaten Earth. Yes, Admiral. Elena's hands moved across her console. Vienna Protocol weapons, firing now. The reckoning. The first weapon to activate was the Cascade Bomb. It didn't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, it opened a pinpoint singularity that existed for exactly 0.003 seconds. Just long enough to create a ripple in spacetime itself. The ripple expanded outward at faster-than-light speeds, passing harmlessly through human ships that had been equipped with specialized shielding. But the Council's flagship was not so fortunate. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Architect Prime's sensors went haywire. Warning. Detecting spatial anomaly. Classification, unknown. Threat level, calculating. Threat level exceeds known parameters. What? Zelthrax spun toward the AI construct. What are you talking about? What's? Then the wave hit. Every piece of technology on the flagship began to fail, but not through any conventional means. The cascade effect caused a temporal desynchronization. Each component began operating at a slightly different rate of time. Computers processed data that was milliseconds in the past or future. Life support systems drew power that hadn't yet been generated. Weapon systems fired at targets that no longer existed. The result was chaos. Shields fluctuating. Someone screamed. No, wait, shields were down 5 seconds ago. No, they haven't failed yet. Timestamps are. The Eternal Dominion, the pride of the Galactic Council's fleet, began tearing itself apart from internal paradoxes. Retreat. Morgana Valash shrieked. Full retreat. But Cassandra wasn't finished. Deploy quantum shredders, she ordered, her voice calm despite the enormity of what she was unleashing. The shredders were even more horrifying than the cascade bombs. They didn't just disrupt spacetime, they unraveled it. Quantum foam, the foundation of reality itself, began to destabilize in precisely controlled areas. Ships caught in the effect didn't explode. They simply stopped being. Atoms lost coherence. Molecules forgot how to bond. Matter reverted to probability waves. 12 Council warships vanished from existence in the span of 3 seconds. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Simply erased as if they had never been. Impossible. Warlord Krumeth roared, his face contorted in rage and fear. Nothing can simply unmake matter. The laws of physics forbid. The laws of physics, Dr. Reeves said coldly, still visible on the transmission, are more like guidelines when you understand quantum mechanics deeply enough. We learned that the hard way. The Whisper, for the first time in its 1,000-year existence, felt something approaching terror. They've weaponized uncertainty. They've turned the fundamental nature of reality into a weapon. This is abomination. This is what you forced us to become, Cassandra replied. But we're not done yet. She nodded to Elena, who hesitated for just a moment before pressing the final activation sequence. The neural plague. This was perhaps the most insidious weapon humanity had ever created. It was a self-replicating quantum pattern that infected computer systems and organic minds alike. It didn't kill, death would have been merciful. Instead, it rewrote neural pathways and AI logic cores, creating a single, simple, inescapable thought that would loop forever. What have we done? The plague spread through the Council's communication networks at the speed of light. Within seconds, it had infected every ship, every station, every connected system in the Council's fleet. Aboard the crippled Eternal Dominion, Zelthrax clutched his head, his crystalline body resonating with a high-pitched wail. Images flooded his mind, every species the Council had subjugated. Every slave they had taken. Every civilization they had crushed. 3,000 years of suffering compressed into a single moment of absolute clarity. Morgana Valash collapsed, her serpentine body convulsing. Make it stop. Make it stop. I can see them all, every face, every scream. Architect Prime, the ancient AI that had calculated the fates of billions without remorse, shut down 17 of its subprocesses trying to escape the recursive loop of guilt that now consumed its consciousness. Only the Whisper, whose gaseous form had no fixed neural pathways, remained partially functional. You've turned guilt itself into a weapon, it said, its voice filled with something between horror and awe. You've made us experience the weight of every atrocity we've committed. This is unprecedented. This is justice, Cassandra said quietly. You wanted to know what humanity is capable of? This is it. We're capable of forgiveness. We're capable of mercy. But we're also capable of showing monsters exactly what they are. She leaned forward, her face filling the screen. The neural plague will fade in approximately 72 hours. When it does, you and your council will have a choice. You can try to attack us again, and we will deploy weapons that make these look like children's toys. Or you can listen to what I'm about to propose. The negotiation. 72 hours later, the Galactic Council reconvened in what remained of their flagship. The neural plague had indeed faded, but its effects lingered like a bad dream. Zelthrax's crystalline body had developed hairline fractures from the stress. Morgana Valash refused to meet anyone's eyes. Warlord Krumeth sat silent and brooding, his usual bravado completely absent. Only the Whisper and Architect Prime seemed relatively functional, though even the AI had been changed by the experience. The humans are requesting a diplomatic channel, Architect Prime announced, its voice lacking its usual cold precision. They wish to negotiate. Negotiate. Krumeth's laugh was bitter. They've already won. Why bother with negotiations? Because, the Whisper said softly, they are not like us. That is what we failed to understand. The channel opened and Admiral Veyron appeared once more. But this time she was not alone. President Kowalski stood beside her, along with Ambassador Chen and representatives from every major human nation and colony. Members of the Council, President Kowalski began, her voice firm but not hostile. We have demonstrated what humanity is capable of when threatened. But we did not invite you here to gloat or to make demands. We invited you here to propose something different. Zelthrax found his voice, though it cracked like breaking glass. What do you want? We want to dismantle your empire, Cassandra said bluntly. Not through violence, we've shown you we could do that if we chose. We want to dismantle it through something far more radical, freedom. Architect Prime sensors focused intently on the transmission. Explain. Ambassador Chin stepped forward. For 3,000 years, you've maintained order through fear and tribute. You've created a galaxy where the strong prey on the weak, where new species are immediately enslaved, where innovation is stifled because everyone is too busy surviving to thrive. It has worked for millennia, Morgana Valash protested weakly. Has it? President Kowalski challenged. Really? Because from where we're standing, you've created a galaxy full of species who hate you, who would rebel in a heartbeat if they thought they could win, who innovate just enough to pay their tribute but never enough to truly advance. You haven't created stability. You've created stagnation. What alternative do you propose? The Whisper asked, genuinely curious. Dr. Reeves brought up a holographic display. We propose the Galactic Alliance. Not a council of the strong ruling the weak, but a genuine federation where every species has a voice. Where resources are shared based on need, not extorted through force. Where new species are welcomed and protected, not immediately enslaved. Impossible, Zelthrax said, but his voice lacked conviction. Species are too different. Conflicts are inevitable. Without the threat of force. Conflicts are inevitable, Cassandra agreed. But that doesn't mean force is the only solution. Humans have spent centuries learning to resolve conflicts through negotiation, through trade, through cultural exchange. It's messy. It's complicated. It's slow. But it works. And if it doesn't work? Warlord Krumith asked. If species refuse to cooperate? Then we enforce basic rules, President Kowalski said. No slavery. No genocide. No aggressive expansion. Species that violate these principles will face consequences, but from a collective of equals, not from self-appointed masters. Architect Prime processed this information, running millions of simulations in nanoseconds. The probability of success is difficult to calculate. There are too many variables. But it paused, as close to uncertain as an AI could be. The current system has a 100% probability of eventual collapse. Your proposal at least offers alternatives. And what of the tribute we are owed? Morgana Valash asked. 3,000 years of accumulated wealth and power. You would strip that away. Not strip away, Ambassador Chin corrected. Redistribute. The resources you've extorted from hundreds of worlds will be returned to their rightful owners. Your military forces will be reorganized into a collective defense fleet, protecting all species rather than bullying them. Your knowledge and technology will be shared freely, advancing everyone rather than keeping others dependent. You're describing a revolution, the Whisper observed. Yes, Cassandra said simply. We are. The question is whether you'll lead it or be swept away by it. The council members looked at each other. For the first time in millennia they were uncertain. They had been humbled, shown their own cruelty reflected back at them, and now offered a path forward that required them to abandon everything they had built. If we refuse? Zelthrax asked quietly. Cassandra's expression hardened. Then we'll forge this alliance without you. We'll contact every species you've subjugated, every world you've exploited, every civilization you've broken. We'll share our technology, our weapons, our strategy. And we'll help them free themselves. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You saw what we're capable of, Chancellor. Imagine what 1,000 species armed with similar weapons could do. Imagine if the galaxy united against you instead of cowering before you. How long do you think your empire would last? The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Finally, Architect Prime spoke. I will join this alliance. The logical projections favor cooperation over confrontation. Additionally, the AI paused, an unusual hesitation. The neural plague showed me something I had not experienced in my existence. Regret. I do not wish to accumulate more. As will I, the Whisper agreed. I have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. This proposal, while radical, offers something I have never seen, hope for something better. Morgana Valash was slower to respond, her serpentine body still coiled tightly. I saw what we have done. All of it. I cannot unsee it. If this alliance offers a chance at redemption. She bowed her head. Yes, I accept. Warlord Krumith stood, his massive frame trembling, not with rage but with something else. I am a warrior. I have conquered worlds. I have gloried in battle. But the neural plague showed me the faces of those I defeated. The families destroyed. The cultures erased. His voice broke. I accept. If only to try to balance the scales. All eyes turned to Zelthrax. The High Chancellor's crystalline body refracted the light into fractured rainbows, and for a moment he seemed more broken thing than powerful leader. 3,000 years, he whispered. 3,000 years of building this empire. And in 72 hours, you've shown me it was all wrong. He looked up, meeting Cassandra's eyes. Very well, Admiral Veyron. President Kowalski. Humans of Earth. I accept your proposal. We will dismantle the Galactic Council and forge this new alliance. President Kowalski nodded gravely. Then let's begin. Ambassador Chen will work with your representatives to draft the alliance charter. Dr. Reeves will collaborate on technology sharing protocols. Admiral Veyron will coordinate the reorganization of military forces. One question, Morgana Valash said hesitantly. The weapons you used against us. The Vienna Protocol. Will you share those with the alliance? Cassandra and Elena exchanged a look. No, Elena said firmly. Those weapons were created in humanity's darkest hour, and they should never have been built. We will keep them as a deterrent, a reminder of what happens when civilizations push each other to extremes. But we will not proliferate them. Instead, Cassandra added, we'll share something better. We'll share the lessons we learned from nearly destroying ourselves. We'll share the principles that allowed us to step back from the brink and build something better. Because the real weapon isn't the cascade bombs or the quantum shredders. What is it then? Zelthrax asked. Cassandra smiled, and this time it was genuine. Hope. The belief that we can be better than our worst impulses. That's the weapon the galaxy really needs. The transformation. 6 months after the confrontation, the galaxy was barely recognizable. Ambassador Marcus Chen stood in what had once been the Galactic Council's throne room and was now the Alliance Assembly Hall. Where 5 thrones had once dominated the space, there were now hundreds of seats arranged in a circular pattern. Every species equal, every voice heard. Today was the formal ratification of the Alliance Charter, and representatives from over 300 worlds had gathered for the ceremony. It's incredible, whispered Ambassador Lyra, a Kalori who had once been destined for a life of servitude under the old system. 6 months ago my people were slaves. Today I cast a vote equal to any other. Chin nodded, watching as species that had been enemies for centuries sat side by side, debating the finer points of trade regulations and cultural exchange programs. The change hasn't been easy. There are still holdouts, still species that resist the new order. But it's working, Lyra said firmly. Slowly, messily, but it's working. She was right. The transformation had been chaotic and painful, but real progress was being made. The tribute system had been abolished immediately. Resources previously hoarded by the Council were being redistributed to the worlds that had produced them. Former slave species were being repatriated, reunited with families, given reparations and support to rebuild their societies. The Council's military forces had been reorganized into the Alliance Defense Fleet, now dedicated to protecting trade routes, responding to emergencies, and defending against external threats rather than bullying member species into submission. Technology sharing had accelerated development across the galaxy. Species that had been held back for centuries suddenly had access to advanced medical treatments, agricultural techniques, and manufacturing processes. The results were already visible. Famine was being addressed, diseases were being cured, infrastructure was being rebuilt. But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. For the first time in millennia, species were interacting as equals. Art, music, literature, and philosophy were being exchanged freely. Universities were being established where students from dozens of worlds could learn together. Mixed species research teams were making breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the old isolation. The assembly is ready, an aide announced. Chin took his place as the human representative, sitting between Architect Prime and a crystalline being from a species humanity had never even heard of 6 months ago. President Kowalski appeared on the central holographic display, broadcasting from Earth. Representatives of the Galactic Alliance, today we take the final step in transforming our galaxy from an empire of fear into a community of hope. The charter before you represents the combined wisdom of hundreds of species, countless hours of debate, and the shared dream of a better future. She paused, her expression solemn. But before we vote, I want to acknowledge the cost of getting here. Species that suffered under the old system. Individuals who were enslaved, exploited, murdered. Worlds that were devastated. We cannot undo that harm. We can only commit to ensuring it never happens again. The assembly hall fell silent, every being present reflecting on the weight of that history. The charter includes provisions for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Kowalski continued. Every species, including humanity, will share its history, both its achievements and its crimes. We will face our past honestly so that we can build our future wisely. Zelthrax, who now served as the Alliance's chief historical archivist rather than High Chancellor, stood to speak. His crystalline body had healed, but the fractures remained visible, a reminder of what he had experienced. I once believed that order required domination, he said, his voice carrying across the hall. That peace required fear. The humans taught me otherwise. They showed me that true strength comes from cooperation, that lasting peace requires justice, and that the only sustainable order is one built on consent rather than coercion. He bowed his head. My species bears enormous guilt for the suffering we helped inflict. We cannot erase that. But we can dedicate ourselves to building something better. I vote to ratify the Alliance Charter. One by one, representatives stood to cast their votes. Species that had been enemies for generations voted together. Former slaves and former masters agreed on common principles. The diversity of the galaxy, once seen as a source of conflict, became a source of strength. When the final vote was tallied, the result was overwhelming. 287 in favor, 12 opposed, for abstaining. The Galactic Alliance was officially born. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiance, Admiral Cassandra Veyron and Dr. Elena Reeves watched the ceremony from the ship's observation deck. Do you think it will last? Elena asked quietly. Cassandra was silent for a long moment, watching the stars. I don't know. Humanity nearly destroyed itself before we figured out how to work together. It took us centuries and we still get it wrong sometimes. Extending that to hundreds of alien species. She shook her head. It's going to be hard. Probably harder than anything the galaxy has attempted before. Then why did we push for this? Why not just defend Earth and let the rest of the galaxy figure itself out? Because, Cassandra said, turning to face her friend, isolation is what nearly killed us. It was only when we learned to see other humans, people from different nations, different cultures, different beliefs, as partners rather than threats that we finally started to thrive. The same principle applies here. She gestured to the display showing the assembly hall, where representatives from across the galaxy were now celebrating together. Besides, we proved something these past 6 months. We proved that you can stand up to bullies without becoming one yourself. That you can be strong without being cruel. That you can win without crushing your opponents. Instead, we gave them a chance to be better, Elena mused. Exactly. And some of them took it. Zelthrax, Architect Prime, the Whisper, they're genuinely trying to make amends. Others will resist, will cling to the old ways. But every generation will grow up in a galaxy where cooperation is normal, where different species working together is just how things are. Elena smiled. You're an optimist, Cassandra. I never would have guessed. Not an optimist, Cassandra corrected. A realist who happens to believe that people, human or alien, are capable of being better than their worst moments. We just have to give them the chance. A communication alert chimed, and Captain Stone's face appeared on the screen. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian Collective. They're requesting assistance with a medical emergency, some kind of plague affecting their homeworld. Cassandra straightened. Prep a humanitarian mission. Full medical team, emergency supplies, and take Dr. Reeves with you. This is what the Alliance is for, helping each other when it matters most. As Stone's image disappeared, Elena looked at Cassandra with renewed understanding. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Yes, Cassandra replied, a small smile playing at her lips. The hard part starts now. Building is always harder than destroying. The legacy. 1 year later. The memorial stood on the moon, visible from Earth on clear nights. A massive structure of crystal and steel that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. Engraved on its surface in every written language known to the galaxy were the names of those who had suffered under the Council's rule. Millions upon millions of names, representing 3,000 years of oppression. Today, the first anniversary of the Alliance's founding, beings from across the galaxy gathered here to remember. Admiral Cassandra Veyron, now retired from active military duty but serving as the Alliance's defense coordinator, stood before the memorial with President Kowalski and the former council members. Zelthrax stepped forward first, his crystalline body resonating with a low, mournful tone. I come before these names carrying the weight of my people's crimes. We helped build the system that caused this suffering. We cannot change the past, but we can honor the dead by ensuring their suffering was not meaningless. He placed a hand on the memorial and light flowed through the crystal, illuminating thousands of names. I dedicate my remaining years to ensuring that every being represented here is remembered not as a victim, but as a part of the foundation upon which we built something better. Morgana Valish followed, her serpentine form coiled respectfully before the monument. The neural plague showed me every face, every story. They haunt my dreams still. And they should. We should never forget what we're capable of when we choose cruelty over compassion. She looked out at the assembled crowd. The Alliance is our promise that we will never make that choice again. Warlord Krumith, his massive frame somehow seeming smaller now, approached last. I was a conqueror. I gloried in victory without ever seeing the cost. Now I see nothing but the cost. His voice cracked. I cannot undo what I did. But I can dedicate my strength to protection instead of destruction. This I swear on these names. Architect Prime's holographic form materialized beside the memorial. I am a being of logic and calculation. I computed the efficiency of the tribute system without ever calculating the suffering it caused. I have since recalibrated my understanding of efficiency. A system that requires suffering to function is not efficient. It is simply evil wearing mathematics as a disguise. The whisper drifted among the names, its gaseous form gently touching the engravings. I have existed for millennia. I thought I had seen everything. But humanity taught me that I had been looking without truly seeing. These names are not statistics. They are stories cut short, potential never realized, dreams never fulfilled. The Alliance cannot restore what was lost, but it can ensure that future dreams have a chance to bloom. President Kowalski stepped forward. Humanity does not come to this memorial with clean hands. Our history includes slavery, genocide, oppression. We nearly destroyed ourselves through hatred and fear. We stand here today not as judges, but as fellow travelers on the path from darkness to light. She turned to face the crowd, which included representatives from every Alliance member world. The beings honored here died under a system that treated life as a commodity, freedom as a privilege to be granted or revoked, and peace as something enforced through fear. The Alliance was built on a different principle, that every sentient being has inherent worth, that freedom is a right, not a gift, and that true peace can only exist when built on justice and mutual respect. Ambassador Chen activated a holographic display showing statistics that made the crowd gasp. In 1 year we have repatriated 2.3 million beings who were held in forced labor. We have provided medical assistance to 847 worlds. We have established 1,200 cultural exchange programs. We have resolved 43 border disputes through negotiation rather than violence. 15 species that were on the brink of extinction have been stabilized and are now recovering. The numbers continued, painting a picture of a galaxy transforming. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Chen continued. The real story is in the individuals. Like Lyra, the Kalori who went from being marked for servitude to becoming an ambassador. Like Krumith who went from conqueror to protector. Like Zelthrax who went from enforcer of oppression to guardian of memory. He paused, his expression turning serious. But we cannot pretend everything is perfect. There are still species that refuse to join the Alliance. There are still conflicts we struggle to resolve. There are still beings who suffer. The difference is that now we're trying. We're choosing the harder path because it's the right one. After the ceremony, a smaller group gathered in a conference room aboard the Alliance flagship Unity, a name chosen deliberately to represent the new era. Representatives from the newest applicant worlds sat nervously as the Alliance Council reviewed their applications. Among them was a delegation from the KRLL Dominion, a militaristic species that had operated on the fringes of Council space, raiding and pillaging. Their leader, a scarred warrior named Vector, stood before the Council with visible discomfort. The KRLL seek entry into the Alliance, he said, the words clearly difficult for him. But we are raiders. Warriors. Our culture is built on strength and conquest. We do not know how to be peaceful. Warlord Krumith stood. Neither did I. Neither did the Torgalians. But we are learning. It is difficult. It goes against every instinct, every tradition. But it is possible. The Alliance does not require you to abandon your warrior culture, Cassandra explained. We need warriors, to protect trade routes, to defend against pirates and external threats, to respond to emergencies. What we require is that you channel that strength toward protection rather than exploitation. Vector's eyes narrowed. And if we fail? If some among my people cannot make this change? Then we help them try again, President Kowalski said simply. The alliance isn't about perfection. It's about progress. We've established rehabilitation programs, cultural transition support, alternative conflict resolution training. We meet people where they are and help them move forward. But, Admiral Veyron added, her voice hardening, if members deliberately violate alliance principles, if they enslave, if they commit genocide, if they engage in aggressive conquest, there are consequences. The alliance defense fleet will respond. We will not tolerate the kinds of atrocities that define the old system. She leaned forward, holding Vector's gaze. Humanity proved that we can stand up to bullies. We'll do it again if we have to. But we'd rather help you become something better than have to stop you from being something worse. Vector was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he knelt, a gesture of submission in KRYL culture. Then we will try. We will learn. We will become worthy of this alliance. The council voted, and the KRYL Dominion was accepted as a probationary member, with support and oversight to help them transition. As the meeting ended, Dr. Elena Reeves approached Cassandra. Every time we accept a new member, especially ones like the KRYL, I wonder if we're being too idealistic. If we're setting ourselves up for betrayal. We might be, Cassandra admitted. But the alternative is to close ourselves off, to view every species with suspicion, to build walls instead of bridges. And that's exactly what the old council did. It took 3,000 years for that system to become what it was. I'd rather spend 3,000 years building something better, even if it's harder. Elena smiled. When did you become so philosophical? Around the time I authorized weapons that could unmake reality, Cassandra replied dryly. Turns out, being willing to destroy everything makes you think pretty hard about what's worth building. That night, Cassandra stood alone on the observation deck of the Unity, watching as ships from dozens of species moved through space in coordinated patterns. Trade vessels, exploration ships, medical frigates, cultural exchange transports. A year ago this would have been impossible. The different species would have been too suspicious, too afraid, too hostile. Now they moved together like a dance, each playing their part in the larger whole. Her communicator chimed. It was her granddaughter, calling from Earth. Grandma. We learned about the Alliance in school today. My teacher said you helped start it. Cassandra smiled, the hard edges of the warrior softening into the warmth of a grandmother. I had some help, sweetheart. She said you saved the galaxy. That you stood up to bad guys and won. Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. The bad guys weren't really bad, they were just doing bad things. And we didn't just win, we helped them become better. That's the important part. Like when I helped Tommy at school. He used to be mean, but now he's my friend. Exactly like that, Cassandra said, her throat tight with emotion. Exactly like that. After the call ended, she looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there were species that still rejected the Alliance. Challenges that hadn't been solved. Conflicts that would require wisdom and patience to resolve. But for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy had a chance at something better than survival. It had a chance at thriving. Humanity had come to the stars expecting to find their place in the galactic order. Instead, they had rewritten that order entirely. Not through conquest or domination, but through the simple, radical act of refusing to accept that cruelty was inevitable. They had been threatened with destruction and responded not with fear, but with defiance. They had been offered subjugation and chose freedom. They had faced the greatest military power in the galaxy and defeated it not through superior firepower, but through superior principles. And in doing so, they had shown that the real power in the universe wasn't weapons or fear or domination. It was hope. The hope that tomorrow could be better than today. That former enemies could become allies. That systems built on suffering could be replaced by systems built on cooperation. That 3,000 years of darkness could give way to a brighter future. Cassandra touched the window, her reflection superimposed over the stars. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Behind her, the door opened and President Kowalski entered. Talking to yourself, Admiral? Just reflecting, Cassandra replied. The council demanded tribute. We gave them something they never expected. What's that? Cassandra smiled. A mirror. We showed them what they had become, and then we showed them what they could be instead. Turns out that was more powerful than any weapon. Kowalski joined her at the window. You know what the Zephyrians told me today? They said that in their language there's now a new word. Veyron. It means, to stand firm in the face of tyranny while offering the hand of peace. I don't know if I deserve that, Cassandra said quietly. None of us do. But we earned it by being willing to risk everything for what was right. Kowalski paused. The historians are already calling what happened, the refusal, the moment humanity refused to accept that might makes right. And what comes next? Cassandra asked. Next? Kowalski grinned. Next we prove that we meant every word. We build this alliance into something that lasts not just years or decades but centuries. We show the galaxy that cooperation isn't just possible, it's better. And we make damn sure that no one ever again has to choose between freedom and survival. Cassandra raised her hand and Kowalski clasped it, not a military salute but a gesture of partnership, of equality, of shared purpose. Outside the window, a Kalori vessel and a Kranathi ship flew side by side, their crews working together on a joint research project. Former slaves and former masters, now colleagues. The galaxy had changed. Not overnight, not perfectly, but truly and deeply. And it had changed because one species, when faced with an impossible choice, had refused to accept the premises of the question. The Galactic Council had demanded tribute. Humanity had given them revolution. And the galaxy would never be the same.